Hey, what's up? It's another episode of Film Streak. My name is Rob, and we're going to talk about some new movies. So what are we doing here? Well, you know what? First of all, let me just remind you, if you are listening to this, thanks for checking this out. Thanks for stopping by. Maybe you're seeing some episodes here talking about movies that you have heard of or you haven't heard of. I try to mix it up, do a little bit of both sometimes. Just depends on my interest, depends on what is really kind of catching my eye at the moment. You know, if you're here from Houston Latino Film Festival and those episodes that I did there at the festival, thanks for coming in and checking this out. If you were one of those filmmakers, you know, it was cool to sit down and talk with some of those folks and get them to talk about their work, you know. So I've seen some good I guess positive like feedback and support on that. So I appreciate all that. That was fun to do. I want to do some more of that at some point. I'm also looking at bringing in some other voices here, maybe some other, let's say, guests or whatever. Just some friends, you know, people who love films just like I do and people that I'm comfortable doing this with. So hopefully that's coming up soon. I'm reaching out, you know, I'm doing some things. So in the meantime, look, let's just get into a few more movies here. I want to talk about a couple of films that actually related to the festival. That's why I brought that up. But when I was there at the festival, not only did I do interviews and conversations with the filmmakers there, and got to see a lot of the films, but I also, I guess, moderated a panel with the filmmaker, director Carlos Lopez de Estrada. And it was cool to just sit and let him kind of break down his work, talk about his approach to filmmaking, approach to storytelling, the types of ideas and the types of choices that he makes with all of his films. And we even got to get into a little bit of like his maybe inspiration or early influences and how that has informed all the work that he's done so far. So, you know, part of me doing that was, hey, I got to know what I'm talking about here. I want to, you know, give the man his respect and let him really talk about his work, but I can't just walk in there blind. That's not cool, right? So I said, all right, let me study up. So I had seen a film that he did, I think it was 2018, something like that, called Blind Spotting. I think that's probably the one that most people would recognize, mostly because I remember it being kind of a thing when it came out. That's why I wanted to see it. But then also, there's one of the streamers or one of the like cable networks, I think they did a series like kind of based on the same concept. So the thing I liked about the film was that Carlos, with his approach to it, made it something that was unique and distinct and kind of broke outside of the mold of, let's say, a musical or even like maybe a crime drama or something like that. It's not really any one of those things. It's kind of a mix of different things. So the films of his that I hadn't seen that I wanted to check out, a feature that he did, I think shortly after that, called Summertime. And that was a film that, just reading the description of it, it didn't really seem clear like what exactly it was, or at least that was my take on it. So watching the film itself and really getting to just experience it, that really helped. I mean, in terms of understanding the idea, but also the filmmaking approach to it. You know, like how do you tell a story like this? And essentially it is a story revolving around, I think it's like 25 different characters, because you've got several different stories, different threads that are all kind of intersecting with each other throughout, right? And this all takes place, I think it's over the course of a day in Los Angeles. It's summertime. You've got different people going through different moments in their lives, different things that they are having to deal with in terms of culture, in terms of their work, their family, their friends. And it's all done in that sort of tempo of like spoken word kind of slam poetry kind of thing. And, you know, for me, I just have to come at it of like, it's not really a world I'm familiar with entirely. It's just not. So it took a little bit of adjusting to kind of understand like that sort of pace, that sort of feel that it has. And of course, you've got all these different storylines running together at the same time, kind of in parallel. And so you have to keep that in mind. Like as we start with a few characters going through some situation, but then we immediately jump seamlessly. We move from another character's point of view into their story and then hand it off to another group of characters and another group of characters. And then we kind of loop back around and things kind of, it's a really interesting approach because it feels nonlinear. It feels like we're just jumping around a lot, but it is all happening chronologically. It's happening in a certain way. And so I imagine that was a big puzzle to solve, to not only like build that story and structure it in a way, but then also to actually film it and produce it, right? Like I'm sure editing was a pretty big task on a film like that. I guess my overall opinion of it is that it's a very contemporary film. Like it takes place in today's world, today's society. And it acknowledges a lot of things about diversity and representation and gender and class. And those are all important things, right? Those are all important topics to have a conversation about. But I think the thing for me was like, it just felt like it was a movie that wasn't for me. Like it wasn't made for me. And I don't mean like I'm above it or I'm beyond it. I just mean like it's for someone who's at a different point in life, who is still working out or navigating, whether it's identity or whether it's their status in the world or in their career or in their family. It feels like it's a movie for young people, which, I mean, look, I'm not young blood no more, So I feel like this is I'm at a different point in life where I see things as like, maybe a little more straightforward. I feel like stakes are different for me or someone at my point in life than they are for the characters in this film. That could even be like a geographical thing, like this takes place specifically in Los Angeles. And this is before COVID. So I'm sure even today now, Los Angeles looks very different than it did when this film was made. But, I don't live in that world. I don't live in that speed necessarily. So I don't know that this was anything I would ever really relate to, and so in a way, the thing is, it kind of reminds me of a film like Do the Right Thing, which maybe I identify with a little more, even though I never grew up in New York, never grew up in Bedford-Stuyvesant. I don't have any connection to that culture either, but that's my time. That period, like late 80s, early 90s, like that's when I was coming up. And that's when the music, the style, the lingo, just the state of culture of the world at that time, I identify with. Like I completely recognize, and it feels like a part of my, my upbringing. The world depicted in Summertime, it's very specific in the same way, but it's just not something I recognize. And so, I feel like there's plenty of people that would understand and appreciate the stories and the characters in Summertime. I don't know if it really connects with me so much. But I do appreciate the craft because there is so much involved with all of the cast, all of the locations, just all of the plot threads that you have to kind of keep moving forward. It does take someone who has a very distinct vision for how to pull that off and the skills, to not only shoot that, work with the cast, and then in the editing, find the film, really make it all still work. So I applaud it. I applaud Carlos for taking on that kind of a project. It seems pretty ambitious when you really think about it, break it down, like just from a technical point of view. The other film of his that I hadn't seen, but I felt like, all right, I need to check this out because it's his most recent, is a documentary. It's called Long Live Montero, and it's about Lil Nas X. And I guess this is about, it's basically a documentary focused on his, I think it was like a year-long tour that he was on. We get glimpses of his journey as an artist in terms of just starting music, finding his voice, and honestly, like revealing his identity, revealing himself to the world. But the thing that I took away from the film was that here's someone who is putting themselves out there. They're going out on a limb. And they're finding a community. They're finding an audience that recognizes it, that loves it, that appreciates it. And so to me, it's like, it tells me at least, it's like, okay, well, maybe this isn't really for me. The music isn't maybe for me, or this journey, this as a musician is not something I recognize necessarily. But I understand the concept of being a creative person and having your ideas and trying to find your specific lane and going for it. And sometimes it can feel like you might have doubt, you might have, your detractors, you might have your own challenges, but you keep pushing forward and you take it to where your vision tells you need to go. That's a determination, that's a dedication I think any creative person should recognize. So, whether you understand the music or the culture or whatever, I think there's still something to take away from the film. Now, the thing is, of course, to me, it feels like, I feel like I could start coming off sounding like the old man in the room of like, I don't like this music. I don't like this dude. I don't like what this is turning out to be. That's not the case. So I don't know. I thought it was all right. I thought it was interesting technically, even of the documentary, but mixing concert footage in and then even like staged footage to make it feel like a real experience. Put it this way, I think what I've seen so far from Carlos is that he has a real knack for working with music and working with the tempo of it into his filmmaking. That just feels like a very distinct way to approach storytelling, is building around music, because that's the thing I didn't mention, but, that's a big part of his growth as an artist is he started doing music videos and has built a pretty solid lineup, like some really cool, really interesting, and even sometimes kind of challenging work. And I like the vision. I like the craft of it. And so that's where I feel like, man, there's a real distinct point of view there. And so I'm interested. I'm interested to see whatever he does next, anything he's involved with. And of course, the Anti-Gravity Academy, which, we talked about a little bit also, but that is a foundation or an organization that is dedicated to helping young new filmmakers find ways to get their films done, whether it's resources, whether it's funding, whether it's talent, all the different elements you got to have to really get a project off the ground. That's what Anti-Gravity is built around. It's kind of, I guess, like a kind of an incubator of sorts for new filmmakers. And I think if he is approaching it in the way that he approaches his work, I think you'll see some really unique and some things that are really outside the box, which I really appreciate. I mean, I think that's what we all kind of look for at some point, because like we get tired of the same thing. And we want to see somebody's new, fresh take on something. And so let's see, what else did I see here recently? Oh, speaking of music and film, I saw the new film, One Love, the Bob Marley film, which I'm not actually clear if the whole title is One Love or Bob Marley One Love. I feel like One Love should be fine, but it did occur to me as like, wait, are there people now that don't know who Bob Marley is? Because that would be a damn shame. I have a real, I think I actually, wait a minute. I did an episode on films about like that culture, that music genre. And when did I do that? That might have been like early days of Film Streak. So go find that episode, I guess, if you want to see some of those. But I know I did, I talked about Rockers, which I still love. I talked about Babylon, which I still love. What else did I talk about? Oh, The Harder They Come, right? With Jimmy Cliff. Come on. There was a couple of documentaries in there too, but those features were revolving around the reggae music industry and culture of, I guess, the 70s into the 80s. But this one is one that I feel like we should have had this movie by now. Because, I mean, it's been, over 40 years since Bob Marley passed. So you would have thought we would have had a Bob Marley movie or biopic at some point. But still, I mean, I was excited to see this. I wanted to watch it, and I didn't get to see it in theaters, but I did see it as it hit streaming. The thing for me is that I still go back to the documentary that came out, and it really went through his life, his music, even, the challenges, the struggles, the attempt on his life, and even, the end of his life. It really captured a lot. Like, we tried to go through the whole journey of Bob Marley. Not only had his music in it, but had a lot of other artists and their music in it. And I thought it really captured that culture and his contribution to that culture. It's probably one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. So watching this Bob Marley film, I just felt like, all right, you kind of have some big shoes to step into. And how are we going to do this? And look, I'll say this. I think we didn't quite get the complete or the right, I guess in my mind. I didn't feel like this is Bob Marley that I have come to know. Through the music, through interviews, through the documentary. This felt like... I'm going to say something disrespectful, I guess, but it felt like someone kind of cosplaying as Bob Marley. I mean, that's so mean. That's so rude. I just felt like there was something missing, This had the people involved to make it great, clearly. I mean, Brad Pitt's one of the producers. What? It just kind of felt like it was like, just scratching the surface. It's like I wanted more. I wanted a little deeper. And, I always say this about music biopics too, because I feel like it's something that I've seen in a few films, and when I see it, it works. But when I don't see it, it immediately stands out to me. It's like, you're making a film, you're telling the story about a musician, a famous musician, a prolific musician, a world-changing musician, and you don't really show me their love for the music. And I don't just mean like, oh, they're always playing their music, like on the soundtrack, or like they're performing. I get that. I need to know, like, what are they doing to make the music, Like, I feel like a few films have kind of gone there. I can think of what was the one about James Brown? Get On Up, was that it? With Chadwick Boseman. There's a couple of scenes in that film. They're not long, but they show the way that he or the musicians break down and build the music. I mean, I think. Did Walk the Line do that too? I think the Johnny Cash one with Joaquin Phoenix. I think that might have had a scene or two of that, of like coming up with the ideas and building it and making the sound or making the hit. I feel like Bohemian Rhapsody had a little bit of that. But, it's like that to me is the fascinating thing. And I get it. It's like anybody can make music, sure. And anybody can... you can show anybody like trying to design or create a sound or a style, but not everybody is Bob Marley. There's a magic that is captured in that moment, like in the real moment. And look, this is what I liked about the Beatles documentary, Get Back, where I was like, oh, wait, we're seeing the whole process, like all of the nuts and bolts, And I really thought, there's the magic. There's the magic I want to see. If you're going to show me a film, tell me a story about a musician, show me them making the music, like literally building it from note after note. And the whole film doesn't have to be that, of course, because I understand it. They're people, so there's also a human story there. But man, I just feel like every time I see a film kind of get into it and then just pull back, or like we go somewhere else, I'm like, man, I wanted more of that, you know? Like there's one scene that I can recall. There's one scene in One Love where they're putting together the song, and I felt like, this is okay. We're getting there, but then we go somewhere else. And it's just like magic. Like these songs just appear like magic. And if you've ever tried to write a song or make a piece of art, you know that's not the case. It's not magic, especially when it's a band, because you got different people involved. If it's one person, maybe it could seem like magic, but that's not really how it works. It's an iterative process. It's a collaborative process. And I feel like that's the thing I always want to see. So I feel like this film, in defense of the filmmakers and all the actors and everything, it does try to sway us and focus us more on the story about Marley and his personal journey, even his struggles with his marriage, with his culture, even with the music industry. But I think the thing that people know Bob Marley for is none of those things. Maybe for, let's say, his role in terms of like an activist or a cultural icon, sure. But come on, you know that he's a musician. You know him for his music, above and beyond anything else. So that's where I just felt like, man, I really wanted more. It's not to say it's a bad movie, of course. It's not bad. Everything's fine. Performances are fine. It's shot beautifully. We get to see the landscape, the places that these things took place at. It's just a matter of, I feel like I always want to see more of the music. So, like, don't let that just be a crutch. You know, the movie gets by playing the songs on the soundtrack. Like, no, I want to see how these songs were made. That's fascinating to me. So, all right, let's get to a couple of others here that honestly, let's just talk about them. 3,000 Years of Longing. This came to mind because I saw the trailer for Furiosa, and, you know, I loved Mad Max Fury Road. George Miller's work, I feel like, in the Mad Max franchise, I feel like is, there's something about it, you know? Look, even Beyond Thunderdome, which I have a lot of weird feelings about, I feel like that whole franchise, it's such an iconic, genre-changing, genre-defining franchise that it always kind of perplexes me how George Miller goes from that to something like Happy Feet or Babe, right? It's like, wait, what? This is the same guy? And so let me see, what did he do? He must have done something else between Fury Road and Furiosa, because why did it take so long? I remember it coming out, and I remember thinking, oh, this looks kind of interesting. It's kind of different. Fantasy, but also maybe comedy, right? So I watched that, and, you know, I just, I think I get what they were going for, but it's not quite, I don't feel like it quite landed for me. It felt like it was more of a love story, because Tilda Swinton does so much in this film. And look, Tilda Swinton's always great, but I just felt like it was really kind of messy, though. Like, I just wasn't sure where I was supposed to be, like, emotionally with these characters. And it's not to say it's badly done, I guess. I mean, it's got a ton of, like, visual effects and some really unique choices in terms of the filmmaking of it, but it really left me just kind of flat. I wonder, I mean, 3,000 Years of Longing, did that work for you? You feeling it? Because I just couldn't find it from myself. I just felt like I came away, honestly, like not really remembering a whole lot of it. I mean, I wish I could say more about it. I like the ambition of it, of course. I think it's always great when a filmmaker takes big swings, but this was like a swing and a miss. The last film I want to get to here is Argylle, which Matthew Vaughn, I like some of his films. I like the Kingsman series, actually. And this one, it's a similar thing. Like, you're trying to have this insane balls to the wall action, but then also it's a comedy. But then you've also got this like romance element going on to it. And it's like a story within a story, kind of like it's flipping around between both worlds of the real world and the fictional world. And by the time we get to the end of it, it damn near goes into full-on musical. Like, it's got dance numbers. It's got a skating routine. It's just like all over the place. And definitely a big swing. Definitely got some ambition behind it. But I just wish it would have been a little more focused on the main character, because Argylle, well, shit. Maybe a spoiler. You know what? I got to spoil it, I guess. So Argylle is not Henry Cavill, as it's shown in the trailers and the promotional stuff, right? I think those things make it pretty clear, like, he's the fictional character. And so part of the story of the film is to find out or to reveal who the real Argylle is. Turns out it's Bryce Dallas Howard. What? Because look, I get it. It's like, it's a cool twist or like a reveal about the main character that somehow forgot her identity, went Jason Bourne on us, I guess. But the problem, I think, is that that's not the right actor for that. I'm sorry. Like, Bryce Dallas Howard, I love some of the films she's been in the past. This one, this ain't it. Especially when you start the film with a character that she very much appears and is supposed to, I guess, take the place of. When Bryce Dallas Howard shows up in that gold dress with the blonde hair, and yet you started the film with Dua Lipa in the gold dress and the blonde hair. Look, you set somebody up for failure. I'm not saying who, but come on. That's not the same person. That's not even close to the same person. I just think there's a difference between playing the character who is kind of like out of their element, or maybe even a little bit like clueless, or even part of like bringing the humor to it, right? And yet that person is supposed to turn like on a dime. Like, once we find out, or once she finds out that she's really Argylle, all of a sudden she's supposed to be a badass. But I don't know if she can't pull it off, but it just doesn't come off, right? Like, this doesn't look like a super spy. I don't know. It's like delivery. It's like the physicality of it. It's I don't know. There's something about it. It's like, it's funny. Here's a thought that actually occurred to me as I was watching the film. There's the thing where Bryce Dallas Howard always supposedly gets confused or mixed up with Jessica Chastain, right? They kind of look alike, but to my eyes, not really. I guess close enough at a glance, right? I think, personally, Jessica Chastain would have worked better in this role, because she can pull off the badass, I think. I mean, go look at Molly's Game. Go look at Zero Dark 30. Go look at, even though I just did not like it at all, but go look at a film like, was Ava, that came out just a few years ago, which, unfortunately, she was supposed to be entirely a badass in that film. And I think that's where it doesn't work. Like, you can't sell that. You could sell me on being one character and then flipping and being the opposite, but to be like total badass John Wick style, it's like, no. Jessica Chastain couldn't quite pull that off either, I don't think. But here, I feel like this is a character that, one, you got to have the range to do it. And, the fact that this is the main character of the film, I think that really just deadens the whole thing. Because everybody in the film is doing good work. Sam Rockwell's great. Bryan Cranston's great. Catherine O'Hara shows up. I was like, wait, what? Even Henry Cavill. Samuel Jackson's in it for a minute. And who else? Damn, there are several names in the film. When they show up, you're like, oh, okay, we're on that now. But the fact that it all hinges on this turn, and not only that, I mean, there's the relationship with Sam Rockwell, with his character, and that's got to be played just right, I think. And there's a point where it has to kind of break. Like, I just don't really feel like, oh, they're getting to know each other. They've got their banter, but then they've got to like change and kind of fall in love in a way and have like real chemistry. And I just did not see that in this film. And on top of all that, you got this cat. Like, bro, the cat gag, that should have lasted like 2 scenes and then be done with it. Like this, the moment comes in the film where she has to decide whether to leave the cat or go back for it, and they decide to leave it. I'm like, yeah, we should have done this like a half an hour ago. I'm sorry. I'm cool with cats, you know. I don't got no problem against animals, but yeah, I mean, this cat is just holding everything up. And it's not funny. It's really not. The little thing of it being in the backpack and all that, and the backpack gets shot at one point, and she thinks, oh, I'm a cat. Bro, that cat would have been a bloody mess inside that backpack. Come on. That was where I was like, all right, I don't really know what we were trying to go for here. It's funny because it reminds me of a few episodes back, or maybe it was earlier this year, I guess, but I talked about, what was it, Operation Fortune, which was the Guy Ritchie film, which was also kind of a take on the spy thriller genre, but it also was commenting and kind of poking fun at like Hollywood and actors and celebrities and, you know, blurring the line between reality and fiction and all that. And how I said, like, at the time, man, this feels like Guy Ritchie trying to do like a Matthew Vaughn type of thing. And here it's like, wait, here's Matthew Vaughn trying to do a Matthew Vaughn type of thing. And I just don't feel like it worked either. It's weird how that happened, man. I don't know. I don't know if that's really fair to say, I guess, but it just felt like this was just throwing a bunch of ideas into the pot and maybe not all of them needed to be there. Because overall, look, even aside from the actors or even the stupid cat or whatever, you know, the fact that this film starts with this extended action sequence, which is a kind of a parody. It's kind of making fun of the spy genre or spy novels, maybe. And it's so over the top. It's so cartoonish in a way. And yet, by the end of this film, the real world that the author and all of this stuff is really taking place in becomes even more heightened and even more cartoonish than the fake world. And I was like, wait, I thought we were trying to poke fun at like how, you know, the writing in this author's novels can be maybe corny or kind of hack or whatever. And the fact that the film basically takes us there and beyond, I felt like I needed that distinction. I felt like that was a big part of the whole concept was, see, the real world is not like the fictional world. You know, things move differently here. You have real consequences. You have whatever. But instead, it goes the opposite somehow. Like things get even weirder and more fantastical in the real world. I don't know. It just got frustrating, you know? It got frustrating and I felt like I don't really know what I'm watching now. So that's kind of where I left it. You know, I wish it would have been better. I think the concept seems fun. There's even a cool little tie-in in some ways to the Kingsman, which I thought, oh, wait a minute. We just opened up a new door here. But I don't know if I want to see these two things like intersect with each other. Like I kind of like the idea of the Kingsman being its own weird, violent, wacky thing. Anyway, those are some more recent films I've seen. Some of those go a little further back. But I mean, I guess of all of these, I guess Bob Marley or The One Love is kind of the one that I'd recommend the most. And really, I would recommend the documentary from 2012, I think. That's a really fantastic documentary. But if you can't find it, or this is just faster to get to, check this one out, I guess. Otherwise, hey, go to filmstreak.com. You can find some other episodes. You can sign up to get new episodes by email. You can find the list on IMDb. I have all of these films. We're well over 400 now, and we're still going. Also, I guess to catch up a little bit, the podcast is on YouTube now. It's just audio, but it's there if you want to go subscribe there. But otherwise, yeah, man, go have fun, stay safe. And I guess summer's coming, so, stay cool and go watch something new.